What we're going to be doing today, well, today is part of our first of a three-part series that we're running in relation to what we'll be thinking about and how AI impacts us as leaders and the things that we need to be considering with regards to implementing AI from a broader organizational strategy piece and how it's actually evolving. We'll also be thinking in our later webinars with regards to how do we bring AI into the context of transformation and what this looks for like us with the tools that we might use moving forward as well. So, what are we going to be covering today? What's our journey today? So, what we're looking to accomplish in the next 60 minutes is we're kind of going back to basics a bit and appreciating that everybody will have different levels of knowledge associated to AI, whether it's at an individual level, if you run your own business, or whether you're a managing director in an organization. Lots of us are using AI in different worlds. So, we're going to be kind of really thinking about what it is and what it isn't. So, really kind of demystifying this. We're going to be really thinking about how we connect AI to strategy. So once we have a basic understanding of what AI is and what it potentially isn't, how do we actually connect this to our organizational strategy and what does that look like and the things that we need to think about? And Cilla's going to be talking more about that area. We're going to be looking at some tools, which Andrew's going to be covering this section, and having a discussion of what might be available to you, how you might be using AI tools currently within your workplace and also in your day-to-day work, just at home as well. We can use AI in many different ways, not only from an organizational perspective, but also things that it can help us with. Let's think about the holiday season coming up, how we might use AI to help us develop an agenda or an itinerary when we're entering a new country. There's lots of different use cases we can think about with regards to that. We're then going to go jump back to Cilla, who's going to be helping us think about how do we learn to tell compelling stories about AI to generate transformation in our organizations and also in our life in general as well. And as we think about this together, we'll also be considering what does this mean from a human perspective? What do we need to consider as individuals using AI and where does it not necessarily replace us, but enhance us. And the whole theme around this is actually the use of AI to enhance us as humans and when it's appropriate and when it might not be appropriate as well. So really looking at it from an ethical standpoint as well. We'll then conclude today's session with regards to a Q&A section. So I'm going to be starting us off today to really think about why does this even matter? There's loads of hype out in the marketplace. You've probably seen lots of AI webinars like this advertised on LinkedIn and various different places. And I think the most important things that I've found from working with organizations right now, that it is an imperative. So what we mean by this is actually it's something that's very much at the forefront of everybody within an organization, regardless of what generation you are, what department you are, what areas that you might be trying to solve. AI is in there somewhere. We might be using it, we might not be using it. But what's really interesting is that from a study that the management today did, just at the end of last year, is that they advise that just 1% of executives believe that AI integration is mature. So what we're saying by that is actually really considered within an organizational strategy perspective, and it's embedded that it's mature and well understood within an organization. That for all of us gives a massive opportunity, a 99% opportunity of trying to do something different and enhance where we are today. I think one of the most exciting things that I'm realizing at the moment through some of the work that I've been doing differently, but I've been doing recently, is that people are obviously already using AI in organizations, regardless of whether this is a tool that we use as an organization, announced and really directed, or whether people are just experimenting on their own. But people are in there using AI in different ways. From a recent piece of work that we did, we really understood that most people are generally using currently ChatGPT and Copilot. That was the feedback that we had through a recent survey of 15 individuals. They're the main tools that were being used right at the forefront of thinking. Whatever we do with our people with regards to the tools that they're doing, the strategic decisions that we make as leaders today will shape our organization's AI future. And this isn't a one-trick pony kind of process. This is an iterative process. What we might decide this week might be different in 3 months' time, based on how quickly and how quickly the technology is evolving. But the technology is ready, but are our people? And this is kind of the paradox and the conundrum that we're in now with regards to 6 or 7 months ago, people might have even argued that the tech wasn't ready. It was there, but it wasn't at a place. Now it's so ready that we're now really needing to start to think about from a strategic perspective what is right for us and the tools that we might want to use to develop and enhance our people, our processes, and our systems. So the reason why this matters for all of us is that we need to have confidence in how we approach this within an organization, even when we might not know everything. And I think this is a thing that I've really recognized through myself and training myself over AI over the past 2 to 3 years is that I don't know everything. I'm not a superhuman machine that knows everything about AI because it's evolving quicker than I can and taking information. So let's think about what A actually is and what it isn't. This is really kind of going back to the basics to really think about this. To cut through sometimes the confusion is a great word out there. It's a way of recognizing patterns at a scale and speed that we can't do as human beings. It's there as a support mechanism to enhance us. It can really look at some of the cognitive tasks that previously that we haven't been able to really look at the speed again that previously that we might have done. So it's that automation side of that with regards to really considering well, how does that enhance our human intelligence to make us go even quicker than what we can already. From my perspective, I use it mainly, but it's a great tool for analysis of data, prediction, and forecasting potentially of what might happen in the future. And there's many different use cases that we'll talk about with regards to how that could be through understanding human behavior, understanding financial data and analysis, supply chain. There's lots of different use cases associated to this, but it's such a powerful tool for this automation. One of the things that I've been considering is actually over the past 2 to 3 years, where has AI already been embedded in systems and things that I've been using, but not known that it was AI? So my background, I worked for Teradata for many years in their warehousing and data decisioning perspective, and AI was already fully embedded with regards to real-time decision making, particularly Netflix is one of our clients there. And it's one of the use cases I'm going to talk about in a little while with regards to actually the decisioning power that was already in their tools that were available there. That was AI, but we just didn't know it was that as users then. And that was only 2 or 3 years ago. One of the things that it isn't is, and I kind of like this, is magic or science fiction. It is smart. It's a tool and it's been developed, and there's incredibly smart people who know the tech are really behind it. I am not one of those people. I'm the front facing, I'm not a coder. But they're the individuals that really know how to make this happen. And it isn't magic. There are experts and people who really understand the background of this. One thing that my daughter talks to me about is, Mum, will it ever replace me? Will there be an AI version of me? And I think it's a really great point to point because that's exactly what it isn't. We are still ourselves, we are still unique selves that bring all of our different behaviors and characteristics. So it can't replace us. The skills that we learn around judgment and creativity and the way that we bring AI together, it can't replace that. That's not what it is. AI is also not a one tech. So this is interesting what I said earlier on. When we did a recent survey, we asked people what technology are they using. They spoke about generally ChatGPT and Copilot, and that was in this just one example. But actually, AI is a collection of technologies. There's so many different technologies out there that we consider, and it's actually from our perspective that will grow quicker, and we will never know everything that's out there. There's just so much on the market now. Um, and this last point isn't something you need to go to university for or study. It's something that will be inbuilt to the way that we learn moving forward from whether we're from in school into university. This is something that will be taught in the future. But you don't need a degree to understand this. The way that I bring this together is actually what actually is it. Think of AI as just that real sophisticated pattern matching systems that can help us as individuals process information. So let's think about every capabilities that we have. And I'll be interested for you to guys just to pop in the chat just to bring this to life a bit so we can take some data from his. Think about the AI capabilities that you use at the moment and just put 1, 2, or 3 down as the one which you use most. So is it generative AI? Is it that tool where you go in and check your email, your grammar, or you ask Claude or ChatGPT to a content, or do you type in, please develop me an image that's going to look like this? Is it generative AI? Is it predictive AI? Are you looking for patterns and forecasts through data analysis? Or is it more enhanced than that? You've worked on a project potentially where you've developed a tool or a functionality for chatbots in customer service, and it's actually potentially started to replicate or move away some headcounts because we're using chatbots to look at customer queries. If you pop some answers in there, we can have a look at some of the data as we go through. So think about the three types of AI that we're looking at there. I'm just going to bring some examples together of how we see AI currently in practice and what we use. So I spoke about Netflix at the beginning. So Netflix has been always been there. It's been decisioning. AI's always been there. It's been the decisioning platform with regards to the machine learning algorithms that are in place, with regards to what recommendations that we see, with regards to the films that we look. But it helps us match the preferences of people like us and their preferences to give next best recommendations as well. So it's a well-known tool, and that's AI. If we think about Meta, so let's use Facebook as an example. When we go into Facebook or Instagram, it gives us different stories to choose from, and it's the algorithms again that they look at with regards to our search history, how we navigate through the system to really kind of think about how we bring to life the next best recommendation with regards to what social content it wants to bring to us. Meta's currently developing a chatbot, and Meta's already got her chatbot in place. It's the most used chatbot in the world, and that was a figure that came by the end of 2024 with regards to how it's seen by management. The most recent use case, just to bring to life, is one that some of you might have seen last week from Starling. So Starling is the first UK bank that has given customers the opportunity to question their banking data in natural language. So I could type into their new tool with regards to putting an opportunity around, for example, how much money did I donate to charity last year? From a perspective of really understanding what I'm doing with my banking data, instead of us having a long list of transactions and some graphs potentially of our spending habits, it's now shifting to a place of actually we can really question our own data live with regards to bringing that information us. And this is just the beginning of Starling's view of actually their wider plans of how they're going to implement AI across all their customer touch points moving forward to really bring this interactive. So those are some examples of some current and some more legacy work with Netflix, but more into the current world. So what do we have to do as leaders to really bring this to life? Um, Everything we talk about from the type of work that I do is all about asking curious questions. And to put us into the mindset of being an AI leader, and these are just some questions for you to consider, to think about when you want to start bringing this into your work, into your workplace. The questions that you might want to be asking around data heavy processes, what decisions might benefit from better pattern recognition. A big one that's in the press a lot at the moment is how do we use AI to free up higher value work, to get the real strategic work done and use AI for automation. And this specifically on is actually what are we missing with regards to what hidden data or hidden insights might be available in the data. My big focus, particularly the type of work I really love doing, is actually focusing on the human side of this, and actually how the two work hand in hand. So, as I mentioned earlier, we're always going to need human judgment and the skill I was asked about. So, how do you use AI now in the work that I do? Well, actually, the value I bring to organizations and the work that I do is actually the skill of actually knowing how to use AI to enhance the work that I do. That's the value now. It's not about replacing me. It's about me learning how to learn to prompt well, to set up the systems and the things that I need as an organizational psychologist to actually enable me to help get even better judgment to enhance my decision making, to provide better recommendations to organizations, for example. And it's the organizations that will really succeed with this is actually the ones that really understand how they're going to use AI to actually amplify. And I really like this word, amplify the human strength and capital that's already within the organization. And that's when we start to win as leaders, when we start to understand that. So let's start just before I hand over just to start thinking about how do we make this accessible? What do we need to do to really start moving forward? And these are some practical steps, okay? And let's appreciate the complexity of some of the organizations that we work with. Where do we even start? Some of you might be in much larger organizations, some of you might be in smaller organizations. Start small. For any of the clients that I've worked with, let's just start small and start with something. but think what could be possible, that big blue sky thinking and that big picture piece, but starting with something to really test, okay? And build your own confidence as well, and really start skilling yourself up through this to really get some quick wins that you can talk about in the work that you do in the organizations more broadly as well. Let's also think about investing. Please don't assume that everybody knows what technology is out there. I was talking when I first met Andrew a couple of years ago. Andrew's much more advanced in the tech space than I was. He's like, well, surely everybody knows all this stuff. And I'm like, absolutely not. This is a massive opportunity for us to skill people up and enhance them with regards to how we might use technology to enhance the work that they might be doing. So there's an area of us from a leadership perspective. We really need to start understanding our people's capabilities, but most importantly, how are they actually testing and using AI today? And we have to think about how do we do that? What mechanisms do we need to do that to help us really understand what might need to change within an organization based on the human capital and knowledge that we've already got. And as we take on that knowledge of piece, we then start to think and consider what does this mean from a strategic perspective? How does this actually align from an organizational perspective? What is the actual goals your organization is starting to consider, even when they might not know how AI can enable it, and where does it fit for the future? So if AI is an initiative that you're really considering from an organization, we need to think about it actually, how do these AI capabilities and thinking start to hit with our organizational vision? And I'm going to start to hand over to Cilla to take us more on from there.
Thanks very much, Charlotte. That's a good segue into really opening up this conversation for us all on the call this morning. So this is really where I wanted to get a little bit more personal with our thinking. We've talked through this morning so far about how you might personally have experienced and use AI. And I would like to really sort of think about where those opportunities are for aligning AI with the organizational vision. I'm going to talk a little bit more this morning about the importance of having a story and a vision around this. There's been some really interesting comments on the chat. Louise, you mentioned this about how can we create boundaries, and maybe we'll come back to that, Louise, because it's an important part of how we tell the story about things as well. But really importantly, starting to bring some clarity for organizations and those of you who are supporting organizations, if you're in a consultancy role, in the way you would like to see AI supporting strategic goals. So we've mentioned some of the areas in which you might be considering already. So I'm just going to recap on some of them, but I really like to then start to open this up, and feel free to use the chat as we're going through and starting to think about, have you already had clarity in your organization or with organizations that you work with regarding how AI will be supporting those strategic goals, whether that's 12, 24, 36 months. And we know things are evolving fast as well. So is there a strategic imperative around operational efficiency and cost optimization? Well, as we mentioned earlier, around that, the automation of repetitive processes and workflows, is that something that's in your strategic imperatives? What about enhanced decision making through data? How do we need to gain deeper real-time insight and understanding from structured and from unstructured data as well, and bring that to life? And I certainly know in my experiences over the last 2 years that often the use and the ability to use data effectively to bring real insight for decision making is an area that most organizations struggle with. The data is plentiful. How we get meaningful decision making from it is a different issue. Personalizing customer experience. Now we see that and some of the sort of big examples in organizations, and I'm going to share a couple of success stories in addition to what Charlotte shared before we finish today. But the ability to bring really appropriate and meaningful personalization of the customer experience. Most of us will have had experiences of AI in early days before the sophistication that we've got now, which don't leave us with a great deal of about jumping up and down with glee, because they tend to have got the information wrong, perhaps repeat information when we're trying desperately to get some customer experience information from certainly from my financial HSBC experiences. I can say that they have been very, very frustrating. However, sophistication now means that the improved customer engagement and satisfaction through that real personalized experience is a potential. Talent and capability development, building internal AI literacy and attracting AI talent is something that is a key part of some of the clients that we're working with in terms of their strategic goals. So how are they bringing people in who are able to think and to use enhanced decision-making capability and enhanced curiosity to work alongside AI? Governance, ethics, and risk management, creating the boundaries and understanding that, is that something that's been built into a strategic goal for your organisation as well? Maybe. And particularly picking up on maybe some of the skepticism there is around how do we create ethical practice, establishing robust governance to ensure that ethical use, that compliance, and building significant amounts of trust, because I think it's trust underpins a lot of this in organizations when they think about this from a strategic perspective. And finally, about scalability and integration strategies. So integrating AI across functions so that we scaling innovative ideas, new business models, ways of working that might enhance what we do and bring scalability and also consistency to that approach. So I'm going to open that up now to the what else. If anybody would like to take a minute just to pop into there any things that are already something that they're considering in from a strategic perspective. And then we'll also start to think about what those opportunities could be for us. So I'm going to give everybody opportunity to do that. And then we're going to start to pick up what maybe 2 or 3 opportunities might be and say, if we've not considered it before, where do we think those opportunities exist? I'm going to just pause for a moment for a little bit of ability to pop some things into the chat and Sonia, yeah, really great point there around generative AI daily in job. Yeah, and developed a chat box for improvement for student support engagement. Fantastic. So that's really sitting in that customer experience box there. Okay. So in terms of where those opportunities are, the question that we might ask ourselves is, to the degree to which we can influence and the identification of those opportunities that would lead us into aligning this with organizational strategy. Because some of you may be feeling that you may not be able to influence organizational strategy significantly. Some of you may already be working with clients where you can do that. So where those opportunities exist, does anybody want to share anything that's occurred to them so far this morning from what we've discussed, where they think they have an untapped opportunity, something that is current in terms of strategic direction that is untapped? Jenny, you've put the use of AI to develop organizational structure. Do you want to just open that up for a moment, if you don't mind me just, I was going to say, picking on you to do that?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Sorry, so I'm very AI naive, and I suppose as an organisation, we're at the start of our use of AI. At the moment, we're sort of going through organisational restructure, and it'd be really interesting to know how AI can be used to assist with that. But also, as it's sort of working in a charity sector, I suppose what I'm looking for is like how AI can really enhance our fundraising campaigns and our sort of monitoring and evaluation of our projects and programs and things like that. Sort of utilizing AI to, as you said before, or as Charlotte said before, kind of reducing the kind of the work that requires the manpower, but not the kind of human judgment kind of thing.
Absolutely. That's great, Jenny. And the opportunity example that you gave there in terms of the people and organizational structure, we might not necessarily think that as a first place to go for the use of AI, but Charlotte and I have just current experience in looking at skills and roles in an organization where we're doing some of that work. And it's absolutely incredible that through a really structured interview, bringing curiosity into how people operate, the roles that they do, where their skills and talents are,
Mm,
how AI, using that data and insight, can start to bring really different and valuable perspectives to an organizational structure or design as well. So
mm.
that's a really great example to bring into this. And Tom, I like your piece around R&D. It sounds like you and Jenny are in the non-for-profit sector. You probably should be having some conversations with each other as well. Anything you
think
want to
so.
add to yours there?
Well, it definitely might be good to connect, Jenny, if you're up for that and have a chat at some point.
Sure.
But yeah, I think without going into too much detail here, you know, like a lot of charities, we've got a service delivery side and we've got our kind of operations, fundraising, communication side. I'm already aware of the service delivery side, especially the R&D elements of that, using AI tools both to further the work and also just to experiment and be innovative, which is part of what they do. So that's why I'm thinking we need to get a kind of a grip on this, because otherwise they'll just run away before we've even, got our heads around the implications, from a policy point of view, ethical point of view.
Yeah,
But that is definitely going to be kind of in conflict to a degree with
yeah,
other parts of the organization that will be far more mindful of, well, where's this data going, and who else can view it and access it, and things like
absolutely.
that. So yeah, that's partly my reason for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom, and thank you for those shares. And it will be good to pick up on, any particular areas that you've discussed on the chat that we can give some additional insight in outside this session, because it now that really provides a good segue for me to hand over to Andrew, who's going to give us a bit more opportunity around the productivity and creativity within the tools themselves and how we can really operate with this. So over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Cilla, and thank you, Charlotte. And yeah, thanks for your contributions and that on the chats and that sort of so far. What I'm going to cover in my section now is giving you some examples of AI tools that that you can use around text, image creation, image analysis, and video editing. In future sessions that we're doing in July, I'll talk a bit more about avatars. And in the September, we're going to be talking in more detail about agents and robots. But all of these things are currently available, as Charlotte and Cilla sort of said. And it's thinking about how you build the understanding of these AI capabilities, so then you can review your organization's current processes, whether you're a charity, whether you're a large corporate, whether you're a government organization, to think about where you can use AI as an assistant to enable and to improve the capabilities of your teams. And then you need to think about where you're going to implement these in an enterprise process on a secure data AI platform. Because use while we can individually use sort of AI and get our own productivity up, the power is going to come when you can share the best practices across your organizations, and where you can share data and share things across the organization. So I'll give some examples of these in different use cases we've used in investment analysis and that, for example. So let me give you a little example here. If you take a lot of text and you can use AI to analyze it, to review documents, to create new contexts, and then you can use these for creating proposals or something. So let me give you an example. Right, can you see my screen okay, that I've changed and that I'm showing you?
Still can, it's coming through now, Andrew. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm showing you now is GPT, and where I showed you that image in the presentation of my book. I wrote a book about 8 years ago. about 200 pages about helping organizations how they should think about their strategy. So first of all, I asked it to give me a summary of the book. And here's some of the key themes that are in the book about the future and practical sort of uses of it. And then I've asked it questions about lessons here. So let's ask it a question. Can you please give strategic advice to a charity on how they use AI with Andrew's 5 Ps? So now, because the AI has got the context of my book, so here now it's giving advice, but charities must start by aligning the AI with their social mission. How can AI help them achieve impact with fewer resources? Can AI help them reach underserved beneficiaries? So these P's are in my book: my purpose, my process, how people are going to be changed, how they could work with partners, how they can improve their performance measures. Okay, now let's ask it, please provide a short intro to my colleagues. So it's given it, and to colleagues in China, in Chinese, please. So yeah, I just wanted to give a very short, simple example of how AI can create text, how it can analyze text, and within the context for your organization. So, there's a bit more detail about how you can get more effective prompting and how you can do more effective use of AI in this sort of context. But I just wanted to give a very simple sort of example. So feel free to put into the comments use cases or questions you might have about how you could use this to write proposals, to do grant applications, to write customer reports, to do analysis of data you've got within your organization. So we're now working with lots of organizations who now send out customer proposals and grant applications and sort of stuff like that with very effective and quicker use by using AI to enhance and support their team members. Here's another very simple example. I wrote an article about navigating the use of AI. I just showed the AI that image on the right-hand side, and it created that text on the left-hand side. So AI is becoming very powerful in its being able to see the outside sort of world. Here's another example, which you can go off and have a look at on podcasts. I've done over 250 podcasts on that now. When I first started about 15 years ago, I'd have a dictaphone and we'd have to type up those the interviews. Now I do the interview on Zoom. The AI takes the audio, it turns that into a transcript. We then create short snippets, we then create short articles. And if you go and look at those podcasts, and you can see on LinkedIn and on the podcast themselves the analysis that the AI has done on the interviews with people who are leaders in their particular area. So Nigel Toon there's written a book on how AI works, and has did a £700 million exit of his tech business in the Bristol area. And Simon Portman I interviewed on the ethics and legal issues around AI. So then that's another use case where I'm using AI to improve my productivity and enhance what we're sort of doing. Here's an example which I thought was a bit curious to sort of show you. I was in my local charity shop, bookshop. I took a picture of the bookshelves and I asked AI, can you please read the text of these books and tell me the book titles and the authors? And here's what it responded with. So note, it couldn't see fully all of the images of the names and titles, but here it did a pretty good job. And then I asked it, I'm interested in technology change. Which would you recommend and why? And it instantly gave me the response by picking out some of the books on the shelf and that there. Now, there could be use cases within your organization, as Cilla and Charlotte were sort of saying, around where you've got lots of data, which previously humans, your team members, would have taken far too much time to analyze and to review. And then now AI can start taking away that drudgery of work so that you then can do the enhanced part of your sort of process. Either it's within your work or whether it's in enhancing the service and that to your customers or supply chain or people sort of within your organization. Here's another little funny, a little example. This is my family having a Christmas Day swim. We've got a holiday home in the west of Ireland and we rent it out on Airbnb. So I thought, well, what if I took that image and got AI to analyze it? And this is what AI came back with and said was in the image. Now, it didn't quite get it right. This is about a year ago it did this, but it only found 8 people rather than actually 9. But if I want to promote this, I don't want to put my family on my website. So I thought, well, okay, I'll get AI now to create an image of 8 made-up people standing on a beach, similar to the beach that we had. So that image was created by AI from the text on the left-hand side. Now, what if I actually want to promote it to the Asian market? So I created a more diverse group. So now you've got the potential with AI to be able to create marketing content, to tailor it to the specific market audience you've got, whether that's ethnicity, age, or in different applications, whether on the beach or in the countryside or whatever. So AI now capability in these areas is moving so fast. And as I said, here's a very example. I was in the National Portrait Gallery and I said, oh, right, okay, now what would AI do in describing this image? And here's the image. There's the description it gave. And then when I use that description for it to create an image, there's the image it created. Here's an example where Walmart were, I saw that Walmart were using AI image recognition to enhance their catalog. So I tried it for myself. I gave it 2 images, and then these 2 models, Claude and GPT, created those text messages. So if you've got lots of images, if you've got lots of content, you could create a prompt and you could create the descriptions that do most of the work that would have taken or you wouldn't have been able to do with your sort of humans. Here's an example of being able to do short video clips and subtitles. So from the podcast I've done and what we're going to do with the video today is be able to create snippets from that. So using an AI-enabled tool called Video, it, within a few minutes, creates video clips, creates the images around them, creates the subtitles and all those sort of things, and makes it really powerful. One last example I'll give you here. For languages. So here's a video of me, and this is the original video in English. Or in China. The next wave of AI will have technology that gives the potential for innovative new value chains. That's connecting these technologies con nuevos modelos de negocio con personas como Jeff Bezos de Amazon y Jack Ma de Alibaba en China. La próxima ola de IA tendrá tecnología que brinda el potencial para una nueva cadena de valor innovadora que conecta estas So in that short example there, I've taken 1 minute of English speaking and translated that to Spanish. And that was done over a year ago. So, and the lip sync and the capabilities are moving ahead. But then the power of this means that any of your team, any of your materials can now be tailored to the particular locations or the particular groups and that you want. The last point I want to make really is here about putting all these things together. We have now built a platform to use AI to analyze data. So in this case, it's for investment analysis. So investment firms receive over 1,000 applications for investment. The AI can now, we've done it to automate the reading the pitch decks, automating reading the financial information, being able to screen those to get down to a particular cohort that meets your criteria, then using AI to interview those entrepreneurs. And also in this article, I talk about how AI can radically change the business model sort of within a sector. So hopefully there I've given you a bit of an overview about how text creation analysis can transform your work and your team, how images, you can tailor materials and images, and how you can use video editing and marketing to really change your marketing and tailor that to particular customers and particular sort of groups. So I'd like to hand back to Cilla now to take us on the journey, and we'll show you some more in July and September.
I never cease to be absolutely amazed, Andrew.
You do get those wow moments, don't you?
Absolutely, if not slightly scared as well.
Yeah.
But that's that. And if I'm having those reactions, then I'm sure everybody on the call might be in different ways as well, which is why this next piece in terms of building the case for change through storytelling is going to be so key for any organization that's thinking that they want to take the type of capabilities that you've shown us and then bring them alive within their organizations and really set their strategy and direction. So I'm going to make no apologies to those of my clients on this call who know me quite well that I'm going to talk about storytelling again and a little bit about visioning because it's close to my heart and it's about how I want to operate when we're thinking about change to the future and how AI will be one of those, not the only thing that is significantly changing the way that we work. So if we move on to looking at the approach through this, then one of the mistakes, I think, and I'm going to be quite, I think this is just based on my own experiences that organisations potentially could make if they're not careful, is about looking to trial a number of the different elements that you've shown us today without real clarity about the why in their organisation and how this fits alongside social mission, particularly in the charitable sector, or organisational strategic objectives that we discussed earlier. And to bridge the gap, I'm a massive advocate for making sure that organisations know how to build a compelling story around this, creating a narrative for the why for AI transformation, building on existing organisational purpose, but also creating a clear story for change, because there's no doubt at all it will be a change in terms of how organisations are going to operate. And just as we had at the turn of the century with our ability to start to connect with what the internet could do and then Google and so on, our ability to start to think about the changes that are going to come into governance, the way we work, skills, capabilities are all part of this. So following a very simple model that we use, which is based on McKinsey's change model, but fundamentally at the heart of any transformational change that you might be wanting to look at with AI will be your need to build that compelling story. And therefore then starting to create the climate where how leaders support the transition into AI, particularly in customer focused transformation, sets the tone and the climate for how the organisation will want to operate with this. We've already discussed a little bit today about some levels of scepticism that there's going to be, and the leader's role in terms of reframing that thinking, levels of trust that need to be built about how AI and data and the protection of data will be managed. And therefore, the third element of that is around how then you create that framework of behaviours, providing coaching and tools for line managers to support teams to adopt the specific skills that they need and to think about the mindsets and behaviours that are required. It might require us to change those performance mechanisms as well that we have, because performance mechanisms are quite often in organisations driven from very traditional methods. It's around formal KPIs. It's about financial outcomes. And yet, when we're thinking about how we can use AI and start to enhance the work we do, there may be very different measures that we might need to think about in terms of measurement of success, but also to celebrate stories where things are working well, but also outline where the risks might be. And therefore, that enables us to start to change the organisational conversation, looking at who's adopting this well, where those high performer profiling and diagnostic activities enable us to think about people who are really change ready for this and how we define that well in our organisations too. So the next slide just gives us a little bit around how we build that compelling story for change. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this, only to say that understanding how our landscapes change, where we are now with AI, what our intent and ambition is, then what does that mean for us as leaders and colleagues, and how we're going to start to measure success. So the 5 chapters of the compelling story for change that we use for any change initiative, but they're equally important when we're building our AI transformation strategy. And let's just think about a couple of organisations have done this well. So on our next slide, we've just got a few examples of organisations from my research that I looked at this morning, and also from experiences in talking to some medtech organisations locally in Oxford who have been really brilliant in this space. And the Mayo Clinic was a really great example that I just wanted to share. We can look at some of the other ones as well, because Amazon is a big one that we know about and maybe seems a little bit less accessible to us in terms of their power and budget in this space. But the Mayo Clinic, their strategic vision is around transforming medicine through innovation and compassionate care. And when we come to send out the notes past this, I will just share with you some of the summaries around the links that these organisations have made between their strategic vision and the way that they've implemented AI, the stories that they've told, if you like. And the AI alignment piece for the Mayo Clinic has been around diagnostic imaging, so deep learning models used for early detection of cancers and heart disease. Significant story to tell behind that. And they've enabled really highly effective patient flow optimization through the work that they've done in the use of AI, forecasting patient admission trends and optimizing the resources that can be used, with ability to then do clinical trial matching, and really then speeding up the process to early diagnosis. So is there a real clear vision and story and social impact here? Absolutely, yes. But the ability to be able to tell that story and then to be able to connect and create the climate in their organisation for getting people on board. Because talking with a lady who's a brilliant person to actually look up, called Liberty Foreman, who in Oxford, who's a really young entrepreneur with this. She said one of the biggest issues was also managing internal staff skepticism around how they will work and the ethics around that. And we might not think that someone else who was really embedded in the medical profession would think like that, and yet that was a core piece for them. And the only other one I'm going to share before I hand back to Charlotte is with Delta. There's lots of lovely examples here, but Delta Airlines, interesting strategic vision to be the world's most trusted airline through innovation and service. So if we're thinking about the fact that trust within customer experience underpins their story, that's a real critical story that they want to tell, then the impact that they had was really key, that they elevated customer satisfaction and reduced costs, but also improved operational reliability. But that element of trust and their ability to build really ethical practice had to remain at the heart of their compelling story for change. The AI alignment they took on was very much about predictive maintenance, a really interesting piece around robotic processing. So, machine learning, predicting where the equipment might fail and reducing delays and then enhancing safety. So, you can see the story that they're building around enhancing levels of trust and safety. They built AI chatbots, streamlining customer service across digital platforms, and we've seen that in action in some of our own experiences. And then they really increased their demand forecasting, using AI aids in route planning and dynamic pricing as well, which is again all about building trust in pricing and in customer experience. So I'm going to pause with that because there's a lots of elements and case studies that we could share there. And maybe we go leave our questions perhaps to the end, and I'll hand over to Charlotte now just to wrap up our session today. And then please feel free, whilst Charlotte is wrapping up, to put any questions or insights from our session today into the chat, particularly ones that you might want us to come back to you on after this session to answer as well. So over to you, Charlotte.
Thanks, Cilla. And Andrew, I'll just jump to the next slide just for a moment. So it's been really great to kind of give a view, and we've kind of done kind of three things. We've kind of done about the bit of the basics around what AI is and what isn't. And I was just reading some of the comments as I was going through about how people are really using AI at the moment. It's very much in that generative AI space at the moment, but there's so much more that we could be doing. But where do we start, and how do we learn it, and what confidence do we need to have that? And that's kind of one of the big questions we always get asked. How do I get started when potentially I'm not technical as well? So it's a good question. We'll probably jump back to that in a moment. And we've kind of looked around, how do we start thinking about connecting AI to our strategic objectives? So how do we create the compelling story? This is where we are and this is where we'd like to get to. And Cilla spoke about that as well. Thank you, Andrew, for going through some tools. I was introduced to a website when I was on an AI talk last week, and I'll share this all with you. There's a website called There's an AI for That. It's a really interesting, it's quite a basic website to look at, but it's a tool that actually lets you to think about, search and Google, is there an AI tool that can help me with this now? So another little giveaway there for you. Go and have a look at that. It might be something interesting for you. There's an AI for that.com. So a little bit more. We're going to cover much more tools ourselves and the practical use of them in business, and we'll cover those more in our upcoming webinars. And Cilla just went on to give an introduction to how we approach with regards to change management associated to AI as well. So what's next? We've got 2 upcoming webinars, so we're going to be really thinking about AI more in the context of transformation. So doing a bit more deep dive into actually where do we start and what does this look like in the transformation journey. And that's coming up in July. Please do sign up for that. The links are on all of our various different websites and on LinkedIn as well. And then we'll be looking at how we use AIs and evaluate which tools might be fit for purpose, considering how many tools there are available out there and the impact and the outcomes that we'd be looking for through a change initiative if we were looking to bring AI into our organisation. So that's the content that we're covering today. We've covered a lot in 60 minutes. So, but if anybody's got some questions, I'd like to stay on just for a couple of minutes. We'll be here to answer them. And I'm just looking in the chat.